The FIA gets hacked as Verstappen's info gets leaked. McLaren admits weakness to Red Bull, and Alonso gives his verdict on the championship fight. What if I told you that one of Formula One's greatest champions just delivered the reality check that could completely change how we see the 2025 title race? While everyone's getting swept up in Max Verstappen mania, Fernando Alonso just dropped some truth bombs that might surprise you. Picture this. Max Verstappen was trailing by over 100 points just a few races ago. Now he's clawed back to within 40 points of the championship lead, with 5 races left. The comeback story writes itself, right? Well, not so fast, according to the two-time world champion. Let me paint the full picture for you. Oscar Piastri sits at the top of the standings with 346 points. His McLaren teammate Lando Norris trails by 14 points in second place. Then there's Max Verstappen, the defending champion, sitting 40 points behind Piastri but surging fast after an incredible run of form. The numbers tell an amazing story. Verstappen has collected 101 points from the maximum possible 108 inches his last 4 race weekends. He scored back-to-back victories at Monza and Baku, finished second in Singapore, then absolutely dominated in Austin with a perfect weekend of sprint and Grand Prix wins. Everyone's talking about momentum, the psychological advantage, how Verstappen might be getting inside the heads of the McLaren drivers. Mercedes boss Toto Wolff even suggested that being the underdog gives Max a mental edge, pointing to how cautious Lando Norris looked during his battles in Austin. But here's where Fernando Alonso steps in with his ice-cold reality check. When asked directly if Verstappen was in the heads of the McLaren drivers, the Spaniard's response was swift and definitive. Absolutely not. Alonso's perspective cuts through all the hype with surgical precision. He sees this championship fight as something that changes not just weekend by weekend, but day by day. One day, Verstappen looks unstoppable. The next day, McLaren could win by 30 seconds with Norris first, and Piastri second, and suddenly Max's chances evaporate. This insight comes from someone who's been in the thick of championship battles. Alonso knows what it feels like to fight for titles, to experience the swings in momentum, the psychological pressure, the technical variables that can flip everything upside down overnight. Here's the crucial part of Alonso's assessment that everyone needs to understand. While he acknowledges that Verstappen's recent performances have been exceptional, he emphasizes that car performance will ultimately determine who takes home the championship trophy. The driver can only do so much when the machinery underneath isn't delivering. Think about what this means for the remaining 5 race weekends. Verstappen needs to outscore Piastri by an average of 8 points per race to claim his 5th consecutive title. Against Norris, he needs just over 5 points per race. Those might seem like manageable numbers given his recent form, but Alonso's warning rings clear. The car decides everything. Red Bull has found something in their setup recently. They've made upgrades and gained a better understanding of their machine. Verstappen himself admitted that if you'd told him during the Dutch Grand Prix that he'd be fighting for the title, he would have called you crazy. The turnaround has been that dramatic. But here's what makes this championship fight so compelling and unpredictable. McLaren isn't standing still. They're making their own adjustments, their own strategic decisions. The technical development race continues parallel to the on-track battle. Verstappen's recent dominance shows what's possible when everything clicks. His Austin weekend was masterful, winning the sprint from pole position, then repeating the performance in the Grand Prix. 2 lights to flag victories that demonstrated both his skill and Red Bull's improved package. Yet Alonso's measured perspective reminds us that Formula One championships aren't won by momentum alone. They're won by consistency, reliability, and having the fastest car when it matters most. The psychological games and media narratives make for great stories, but lap times and points ultimately decide championships. The mathematics still favor the McLaren drivers. Piastri leads for good reason. He's been consistently scoring strong points throughout the season. Norris sits second because he's delivered when needed. Verstappen's deficit exists because Red Bull struggled for much of the early season. What we're witnessing is fascinating from a sporting perspective. Can Verstappen complete one of the most remarkable championship comebacks in recent memory? Or will McLaren's season-long consistency prove decisive? Alonso suggests we shouldn't get too caught up in the current narrative because it could all change tomorrow. The veteran's words serve as a reminder that in Formula One, Nothing is guaranteed until the checkered flag falls in Abu Dhabi. Car performance fluctuates between circuits. Technical issues can strike anywhere. Strategic mistakes can cost crucial points. Weather can shuffle the competitive order. So while the Verstappen hype train gathers steam and the comeback story captures imaginations worldwide, Fernando Alonso offers the perspective that only comes from decades of experience at the highest level. This championship fight isn't over, but it's far from decided either way. The reality check is simple. Forget the psychology, ignore the momentum talk, and focus on what really matters. Which team brings the fastest car to each remaining circuit? What if I told you that one of the greatest comebacks in Formula One history might be happening right before our eyes? Picture this. Just 4 months ago, Max Verstappen was trailing by 104 points in the championship standings. Most experts had already written off his chances for a 5th consecutive world title. Fast forward to today, and suddenly we're looking at a completely different story that has the entire Formula One paddock on edge. The numbers tell an incredible tale of determination and raw talent. In the span of just 4 race weekends, Verstappen has clawed back an astounding 64 points, reducing what seemed like an insurmountable deficit to just 40 points behind championship leader Oscar Piastri. Out of a maximum possible 108 points available during this period, the Dutch driver has secured an almost perfect 101 points. That's not just impressive driving, that's championship-caliber dominance when it matters most. But here's where the story gets really interesting. While Verstappen has been on this remarkable charge, his main rivals at McLaren have been experiencing their worst stretch of the entire season. The Papaya team hasn't celebrated a victory in 4 consecutive race weekends, and their star driver Piastri has managed just 1 podium finish during this crucial period. Even more concerning for McLaren, Piastri has suffered 2 costly retirements, including a devastating opening lap crash in Azerbaijan and another collision during the Austin sprint race. The psychological pressure is now firmly shifted onto McLaren's shoulders. What once felt like a comfortable championship lead has transformed into a nail-biting battle with everything to lose. The confidence that carried them through the middle part of the season seems to be evaporating, and you can sense the tension building within the team as they watch their advantage slip away week by week. Red Bull's Motorsport advisor has been openly optimistic about their chances, noting that McLaren no longer displays the same lightness and ease they showed during their dominant period. The Austrian team's recent technical upgrades, particularly a new floor introduced at Monza, have been absolutely crucial to Verstappen's resurgence. The car that once struggled with balance issues has been transformed into a weapon that allows Verstappen to showcase his exceptional abilities. What makes this comeback even more remarkable is the strategic contrast between the 2 teams' approaches. While Red Bull continues to develop and upgrade their car with more improvements planned before the season ends, McLaren has made the controversial decision to freeze development on their current machine. Their team principal has confirmed that no new parts or upgrades will be introduced for the remaining races. This decision could prove to be either strategically brilliant or catastrophically wrong, depending on how the final chapters of this championship battle unfold. Verstappen himself has been remarkably composed about his title chances, describing them simply as 50-50. He either wins it or he doesn't, and he's not overthinking the mathematics. This mental approach is classic Verstappen, SOP, focused on execution rather than getting caught up in the pressure of the moment. When his car is capable of fighting for victories, he knows he can deliver the results needed. The historical significance of what Verstappen is attempting cannot be overstated. He already holds the record for the biggest championship comeback in modern Formula One, having overturned a 46-point deficit to Charles Leclerc in 2022. But a 104-point swing would be absolutely monumental, the kind of achievement that would cement his legacy as one of the sport's greatest competitors. If successful, he would become only the 2nd driver in Formula One history to win 5 consecutive world championships, joining the legendary Juan Manuel Fangio in this exclusive club. Weather conditions could play a crucial role in determining the outcome. Rain has been forecast for upcoming races, and wet weather has always been Verstappen's specialty. His ability to find grip and speed in challenging conditions is unmatched in the current field, potentially giving him additional advantages when every point counts. The pressure on McLaren to make strategic decisions is intensifying. With both Piastri and Lando Norris still mathematically in contention, the team faces difficult choices about whether to prioritize one driver over the other. Team orders could become a decisive factor, but implementing them risks creating internal friction at the worst possible time. Looking at the bigger picture, this championship battle represents everything we love about Formula One. The combination of cutting-edge technology, strategic decision-making, and pure driving talent creates drama that no script could improve upon. Verstappen's charge demonstrates why he's considered one of the greatest drivers of his generation, while McLaren's response will test their mettle as championship contenders. With 5 races remaining, every single point will be crucial. The margin for error has essentially disappeared, and both teams know that one mechanical failure, strategic mistake, or moment of driver error could decide the entire championship. The intensity will only increase as we head toward what promises to be an absolutely thrilling conclusion to one of Formula One's most dramatic seasons in recent memory. This is shaping up to be Verstappen time, and the racing world is watching with anticipation. Picture this: 3 hackers sitting at their computers, casually sipping coffee, and in just 10 minutes, they've broken into one of the most secure databases in motorsport. They're now staring at Max Verstappen's passport, his driver's license, and every piece of personal information you can imagine. Sound impossible? Well, it just happened to Formula One's governing body, and the story behind it will shock you. What started as a routine security audit turned into one of the most embarrassing cybersecurity breaches in Formula One history. The hackers didn't just stop at Verstappen either. They had access to every single Formula One driver's most sensitive personal data. We're talking passports, home addresses, phone numbers, private correspondence with the FIA, and even their license documents. Everything that could potentially ruin a driver's life if it fell into the wrong hands. But here's where this story gets really interesting. These weren't your typical cybercriminals looking to make a quick buck or cause chaos. The 3 individuals behind this breach were ethical hackers, also known as white hat hackers, who discovered the vulnerability while conducting broader security research. Their names are Nagley, Sam Curry, and Ian Carroll, and they found what they described as a severe vulnerability in the FIA's critical portal system. The speed at which they penetrated the system is absolutely mind-blowing: 10 minutes. That's all it took to bypass what should have been world-class security measures, protecting some of the most famous athletes on the planet. Think about that for a moment. In less time than it takes to grab lunch, these hackers had complete access to information that could have been sold for millions on the dark web, or used for identity theft, blackmail, or worse. Nagley, who describes himself as the head of threat exposure at a cybersecurity company, immediately took to social media to reveal the breach. His post on X sent shockwaves through the Formula One community and raised serious questions about digital security in professional motorsports. The vulnerability they discovered was so simple that it raises uncomfortable questions about how many other potential entry points might exist in similar systems across the sporting world. What makes this breach particularly concerning is the treasure trove of information that was at stake. Formula One drivers are global celebrities with massive financial assets and extensive travel schedules that make them prime targets for criminal activity. Their passport information could enable sophisticated identity theft schemes, while their personal contact details and addresses could facilitate stalking, harassment, or even kidnapping attempts. The private correspondence between drivers and the FIA could contain sensitive information about investigations, penalties, or internal politics that could be embarrassing or damaging if made public. The timing of this breach couldn't have been worse for the FIA, which has been working hard to modernize its digital infrastructure and create more efficient systems for managing driver information. The organization has invested heavily in what they call world-class data security measures, implementing policies of security by design in all new digital initiatives. Yet despite these investments and protocols, a simple vulnerability left the door wide open for anyone with basic hacking knowledge to walk right in. Fortunately for everyone involved, these particular hackers operated with a strong ethical framework. As soon as they confirmed they could access the sensitive information, they immediately stopped their testing, took screenshots only for proof of concept, and deleted all test data. Most importantly, they worked directly with the FIA to fix the vulnerability rather than exploiting it for personal gain or selling the access to malicious actors. The FIA's response was swift and professional once they were notified of the batper. breach. Within 24 hours, they had patched the vulnerability and secured all driver information. They also followed proper protocols by reporting the incident to applicable data protection authorities and notifying the small number of drivers who were specifically impacted by the breach. The organization emphasized that no other FIA digital platforms were compromised during this incident. However, this isn't the FIA's first rodeo with cybersecurity issues. Just last year, they suffered another breach involving phishing attacks that resulted in unauthorized access to personal data contained in 2 email accounts. While the full scope of that previous hack was never revealed, it demonstrates a concerning pattern of security vulnerabilities within the organization's digital infrastructure. The broader implications of this breach extend far beyond Formula One. If the governing body of one of the world's most technologically advanced sports can be compromised so easily, what does that say about cybersecurity across other major sporting organizations? How many other athlete databases might contain similar vulnerabilities waiting to be discovered by less ethical hackers? This incident serves as a wake-up call for all organizations handling sensitive personal information. The fact that ethical hackers discovered this vulnerability is incredibly fortunate. Imagine if criminals with malicious intent had found it first. The potential for blackmail, identity theft, or worse could have devastated not just individual drivers, but the entire sport's reputation and integrity. Moving forward, the FIA has committed to continuing their investment in cybersecurity measures and maintaining their security by design approach to all digital initiatives. But this breach proves that even the most well-intentioned security measures can fall short if not properly implemented and regularly tested by independent security researchers.
Formula One fans, buckle up because we've got some absolutely massive news dropping about the 2026 season that could completely shake up the grid.
I'm talking about leaked engine performance data that suggests one manufacturer might be starting with a huge disadvantage while another could dominate from day one. And trust me, this story has more twists than a Monaco street circuit. So here's the bombshell that's got the paddock buzzing. According to insider reports, Audi's brand new Formula One engine for their debut season in 2026 could be producing up to 31 brake horsepower less than what Mercedes has achieved on their test bench. That's not just a minor gap, that's a performance canyon that could determine championship battles before the season even starts. Let me paint you the full picture of what's happening here. The 2026 season represents the biggest technical revolution Formula One has seen in over a decade. We're talking about engines that are 50% electrified, running on completely sustainable fuels, paired with active aerodynamics that will let cars transform their downforce levels mid-lap. It's basically like reinventing the wheel, except the wheel goes 300 kilometers per hour. Now, Mercedes isn't exactly new to this game. Remember 2014 when the hybrid era began? They absolutely crushed everyone, winning 8 straight constructors' titles and 7 drivers' championships between Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg. The Silver Arrows turned Formula One into their personal playground for nearly a decade, and if these leaked numbers are accurate, they might be about to do it all over again. The rumored figures are genuinely staggering. Mercedes has allegedly hit 420 kilowatts on their dyno, which translates to about 571 brake horsepower. Meanwhile, Audi has apparently just broken through the 400 kilowatt barrier, putting their internal combustion engine somewhere between 540 and 550 brake horsepower. That 20 to 30 horsepower deficit might not sound like much, but in Formula One terms, it's absolutely massive. To give you some context about how significant this gap could be, the FIA analyzed all the current power units back in 2023. They found that the Renault engine, which everyone agrees is the weakest on the grid right now, was only 20 to 33 brake horsepower behind the frontrunners. So if these Audi numbers are accurate, they're basically starting where Renault is today, which is not where you want to be as a new manufacturer trying to make a statement. But here's where it gets really interesting. These leaked figures aren't coming from official sources. Instead, they're apparently originating from engineers who are, and I quote, sniffing the air during ongoing preparations. The Formula One paddock is basically one giant rumor mill, especially when you have engineers constantly switching between teams and manufacturers. Information spreads faster than DRS zones on the main straight. Jonathan Wheatley, who's now running the Sauber team that will become Audi, recently gave an update on their progress. He confirmed their dyno program is on schedule, and they're focusing heavily on reliability before they pair the engine with the chassis for the first time this December. But he was very careful to say it's too early to talk about performance, which might be diplomatic speak for we're not quite where we want to be yet. The plot thickens even more when you look at the broader engine manufacturer landscape. We've got 5 companies building power units for 2026: Mercedes, Ferrari, Honda, Audi, and the newcomers Redbull powertrains working with Ford. But here's the kicker. Earlier reports suggested that all but one manufacturer, believed to be Mercedes, has been struggling with serious development issues. 2 unnamed manufacturers were supposedly a long way behind, while another was having trouble because they chose a different type of biofuel compared to everyone else who went with synthetic fuel. It's like showing up to a drag race with the wrong type of gasoline. The FIA even introduced a new safety net program called Additional Development and Upgrade Opportunities, specifically to help struggling manufacturers catch up, which tells you everything about how concerned they are about competitive balance. Mercedes team boss Toto Wolff might have inadvertently confirmed their advantage during the summer break when he estimated that cars could hit 400 kilometers per hour at full power next season. That's nearly 250 miles per hour, which is absolutely mind-blowing. The combination of more powerful engines and active aerodynamics could create top speeds we've never seen before in Formula One. Meanwhile, Red Bull's Laurent Mekies recently admitted it would be silly to expect their new Ford partnership to immediately rival Mercedes and Ferrari. This came after his predecessor Christian Horner claimed it would be embarrassing for established manufacturers if Red Bull Ford came out swinging. The confidence levels across different teams couldn't be more different right now. Ferrari appears to be in their own world of innovation, reportedly developing a revolutionary and top-secret intake system after abandoning a highly innovative steel cylinder head design over reliability concerns. They're supposedly playing catch-up to Mercedes, but with Honda not far behind in the development race, Audi is trying to strengthen their position by poaching key Ferrari personnel. Wolf Zimmermann, Ferrari's head of internal combustion engine research, and his deputy Lars Schmidt are expected to join Audi once their work on Ferrari's 2026 engine is complete. They'll be reuniting with former Ferrari team principal Mattia Binotto, who's now running Audi's entire Formula One technical operation. The timing of all this drama couldn't be more perfect. We're less than 2 years away from what could be the most significant regulation change in modern Formula One history. Teams are spending hundreds of millions developing these new power units, and early indications suggest the performance gaps could be enormous from day one. What makes this situation even more intense is that unlike aerodynamic packages which teams can update relatively quickly, engine development is heavily restricted once the season begins. If Audi really is 30 horsepower down on Mercedes come race day in 2026, they could be stuck with that disadvantage for years while they develop solutions within the tight regulatory framework. This leaked data, if accurate, suggests we might be heading toward another period of Mercedes dominance, just when Formula One was celebrating the most competitive era in decades. The 2026 regulation reset was supposed to level the playing field, but instead, it might create the biggest performance gaps we've seen since the hybrid era began. The question now is whether these early rumors hold true when the green flag waves in 2026, or if the underdog manufacturers can pull off some last-minute magic to close the gap. Picture this. You're one of Formula One's most beloved commentators, walking through a grid filled with world-class drivers, billionaire team owners, and A-list celebrities. Millions are watching live. One wrong word, one awkward moment, and your decades-long career could crumble in seconds. Welcome to Martin Brundle's world, where every grid walk is a high-stakes gamble that he believes will eventually end his legendary broadcasting career. Martin Brundle isn't just any commentator. This 66-year-old former Formula One driver turned broadcasting icon has become synonymous with pre-race entertainment through his famous grid walks. But behind that confident exterior and quick wit lies a man who admits he's terrified every single time he steps onto that grid with a microphone in hand. The stakes couldn't be higher. In today's cancel culture climate, Brundle knows he's perpetually walking a tightrope. One sentence, one misunderstood comment, one celebrity encounter gone wrong, and his illustrious career could vanish overnight. It's a reality that haunts him before every single race. Let's dive into what makes Martin Brundle such a fascinating figure in Formula One. His racing pedigree speaks for itself. Between 1984 and 1996, he competed in 158 Grand Prix races, securing 9 podium finishes while driving for legendary teams like Tyrrell, Benetton, and Mclaren. When his racing days ended, he seamlessly transitioned into broadcasting, spending the last 3 decades commentating for major networks including ITV, BBC, and Sky Sports. But it's his gridwalk segments that have truly made him a household name. These pre-race adventures see Brundle navigating the starting grid, interviewing drivers, team principals, officials, and celebrities in what he describes as pure car crash television. The format is deceptively simple, yet incredibly challenging. It's live, unrehearsed, and offers no second chances. The format is live. Pressure is immense. Brundle recently opened up about his fears, explaining to Hollywood actor Glenn Powell during the United States Grand Prix that the grid walk represents his biggest professional vulnerability. His exact words were chilling. It's going to finish his career one day, because he'll inevitably make himself look really silly. This isn't mere hyperbole. Brundle has experienced firsthand how quickly things can spiral out of control. He's had memorable encounters with celebrities like Cara Delevingne, Machine Gun Kelly, Megan Thee Stallion, Mariah Carey, and tennis legends Venus and Serena Williams. Some of these interactions have been smooth and engaging, while others have been awkward disasters that went viral for all the wrong reasons. The unpredictability is what makes each grid walk a potential career-ending moment. Security guards sometimes interfere, celebrities can be uncooperative or dismissive, and technical difficulties add another layer of complexity. Meanwhile, millions of viewers worldwide are watching every second, ready to screenshot, clip, and share any misstep across social media platforms. What's particularly fascinating is how Brundle describes the experience. He calls it car crash television, acknowledging that the entertainment value often comes from things going wrong. Viewers tune in not just for the interviews, but for the possibility of witnessing uncomfortable moments, celebrity snubs, or Brundle having to think quickly on his feet when plans fall apart. The psychological toll is evident. Despite his decades of experience, Brundle admits to being terrified of each grid walk. He's acutely aware that he's one ill-advised remark away from cancellation, one awkward celebrity encounter away from becoming an internet meme, one security incident away from professional embarrassment. This fear isn't irrational in today's media landscape. Social media amplifies every mistake, and public opinion can shift dramatically based on brief clips taken out of context. What might have been forgiven or forgotten in previous decades now lives forever online, dissected and debated by millions of users who weren't even watching the original broadcast. Yet Brundle continues because he recognizes the privilege and unique access his position provides. He regularly meets politicians, royalty, movie stars, and sports legends. These encounters offer viewers unprecedented behind-the-scenes access to Formula One's glamorous world, something impossible to replicate in any other format. The irony is palpable. The very segment that has defined Brundle's broadcasting career and endeared him to fans worldwide is also what he believes will ultimately destroy it. It's a testament to his professionalism and dedication that he continues despite these fears, delivering entertaining content week after week, season after season. Recent recognition of his contributions includes receiving an OBE earlier this year, highlighting his significant impact on Formula One broadcasting. However, accolades don't diminish his anxiety about future grid walks. If anything, they raise the stakes higher, making any potential misstep more newsworthy and damaging. The grid walk phenomenon reflects broader changes in sports broadcasting. Audiences no longer want sanitized, predictable content. They crave authenticity, spontaneity, and the possibility of witnessing unscripted moments. Brundle's grid walks deliver exactly this, but at enormous personal and professional risk. Looking ahead, Brundle's concerns seem justified. As Formula One continues growing globally, attracting new audiences and celebrities, the grid walks will likely become even more high-profile and scrutinized. Each interaction carries greater potential for both triumph and disaster. The question isn't whether Brundle will eventually have his feared career-ending moment, but when. Until then, Formula One fans worldwide will continue tuning in, partly for the racing, analysis, and partly for the thrilling possibility of witnessing broadcasting history, either triumphant or catastrophic. Martin Brundle's grid walk legacy represents the ultimate high-wire act in sports broadcasting, where decades of expertise and reputation hang in the balance with every live television moment.